Embark on a weekly literary journey with our curated showcase. Immerse yourself in the best tales, carefully selected for your reading pleasure. Your passport to storytelling excellence awaits. Story 1. My boyfriend won't use his real voice, and it's becoming a problem. My 26 female boyfriend, 29 male, and I have been dating for just over 5 months now. In all other things are going pretty well thus far. We've met each other's friends, and I'm planning on introducing him to my family soon. My boyfriend's voice seems to fluctuate a lot, way beyond what is normal. 99% of the time, he'll speak in this heavy, guttural voice that sounds like an action hero or something. I know that some men have a deeper voice naturally, but my boyfriend's voice is far deeper than anyone else I know in real life. It's practically a growl. But as we've been spending more time together, I've noticed that there are certain times his voice sounds way different. For example, a few days ago, I asked him a question in the middle of the night when he was almost asleep, and his voice sounded much more normal. Whenever he's excited or taken by surprise, he lets this other voice slip. This other voice is much higher in pitch and more nasally, if that makes sense. It's nothing like the voice I associate with my boyfriend. When we first started dating, I remember noticing that my boyfriend had a voice that was lower in pitch than average, but never thought much of it. But I was watching a saved video of the two of us from a few months ago, and comparing now to then, there has been a significant drop in pitch. His voice is so gravelly now that he basically sounds like the Christian Bale Batman voice, if the guy had also been a chain smoker. This didn't really seem like an issue until I was thinking about it the other day, and I brought it up to my boyfriend just out of interest. What I wasn't expecting was for him to absolutely shut down, telling me to mind my business and that his voice had nothing to do with me. Obviously, this relationship is new, but he's never flipped out at me like that before. He's actually usually a pretty good communicator. How should I handle this? I don't really understand the issue here, or what's getting him upset, but I get the feeling it's something we need to talk about if it's making him react like this. I don't know why he'd put on a voice that's so much deeper than his natural one, especially considering nobody really talks like he does in real life.
I have no idea what you're talking about. I mean, I'm sure it's just a naturally fine voice.
I don't know, it sounds like there's some really deep reason for him to try and hide this. I mean, how is it a problem? How is it a problem? Are other people commenting on it? Are they making disparaging remarks? Are you afraid that your family isn't going to accept him? Unless there's like a really deep reason, you might want to just let it go for a while. I mean, if you think he's lying about his voice, is he lying about any other part of his life? Maybe this is just one quirk. Story 2. Mom kidnapped our kids and said she didn't know it was against the rules. So my wife and I have 2 kids, a nearly 3-year-old and an 18-month-old. We went a cruise to the Bahamas for 2, meaning the kids couldn't go. My mother volunteers to watch the kids. Great, it's all settled. We're going to get away for a week and have some time for ourselves. As the date approaches, Mom starts talking about having the kids at her house for the week. We told her we were under the impression that she was going to be at our house. All the kids' stuff is here. Our home is a single story and easy to track the kids in. It's significantly closer to all of their doctors for emergencies. We're talking 20 minutes versus an hour and a half. And our house is baby-proofed, whereas hers is not. So we said we really felt they should be at our house, and if that didn't work out, we would make other arrangements. She said our house was fine, but days later she said she would like to be at her house because my siblings who still live with her could help watch the kids. These are the same siblings who we were told needed to be instructed on how to be nice to toddlers which is why we weren't invited to Thanksgiving. No thanks. We'll get you support through our own channels. People you know and like who can pop in to get you relief and help out. We leave for our trip. Though, as we're showing Mom where everything is and going over food and snacks, she's more interested in playing with the kids than learning where the diapers are. So one day in the boat, my wife uses the boat's internet to do a video call to check on the kids. All seems fine, but my mother tells her not to call again for the rest of the trip because it may upset the children. My wife doesn't tell me about that part in their convo right away, but as soon as she does, we call back. When she answers, she's at her house with the kids, and you can see brand new kids' apparel and paraphernalia in the background. I asked her what happened, and she told me she was really sick and thinks she's got norovirus, WTH. What the hell? Super nauseous. It was all she could do to call her brother, who lives 5 minutes from me, to have him pack the kids in my wife's car and drive an hour and a half to her house. So, you were so sick that you couldn't watch the kids, but you could drive home in a car that wasn't yours and endanger kids that aren't yours in the event that you pass out? Or spontaneously start vomiting while on the freeway, potentially unaliving our children? Why didn't you call the list of people who said they'd come help? They had set aside parts of their weeks to come out and support with their time and money. Do they even know the kids aren't home? Do you know that one person is staying in a hotel 10 minutes from you in case of an emergency? Now they're an hour and a half from home and none the wiser for what's happening. The first thing she says is she really was sick. I never accused her of not being sick. I doubted it, but I never said it. Then she tells me, how dare I judge her for her decisions, and she doesn't have to justify herself to me, and that she doesn't have to watch my kids. I told her to pack my kids up in the car and take them home. Someone else was going to watch them. When she dropped the kids off, she was nasty to the new caretakers and sulked. As soon as I knew the kids were safe, I sent her a message saying she clearly didn't respect us as parents. Doesn't matter how many kids she's raised. These are ours, and she sure as hell needed to justify herself and check in with us if she was too sick to do her job. We have the right to know what's going on with our kids, and any sane person would call and ask us what we wanted them to do before packing the kids up and taking them away. If the roles were reversed, she would have absolutely lost her mind, and I know because I've seen it. And that she didn't need to see the kids again if she was going to go that far out of her way to undermine us and then act like a spoiled child to family and friends when she gets caught. The next day, she replied to the message saying she didn't realize she did anything that was that far out of expected parameters. Yeah, her words. And that she recognized that parents had their own rules and she would have to learn ours. Never did anything resembling sorry came from across that message or in that message or in any other. We blocked her on social media and haven't spoken to her since. I mean, really. She thinks she has the right of grandmother or something like that? I mean, I'm glad that they were able to get someone that they had such plans that they were able to get someone to take over on this stuff. Just really amazing. I hope they can enjoy the rest of their trip, but really, wow, this grandmother just was really acting selfishly. I mean, I would almost suspect that when they were about to come back, she would say, well, why not just let them stay over here for another week? I'm pretty sure she wanted to just take over these kids. Story 1. Am I the a-hole for refusing to take a DNA test to keep inheritance? I, 25 male, am having a clash of morals and obligations and would like an outside perspective. When I was 13, my parents passed away, and I was raised by my paternal grandparents. It was the easiest choice since they lived in the same area when my parents were alive and visited them frequently. I am my grandparents' only grandchild, as my aunt, 43 female, is child-free, so when they passed on, they left me their house. The current total value of the house is around $500,000, and that's lowballing the estimate, and it's fully paid off, so I basically have a really good head start in life, although I could never imagine selling it. Recently, I was approached by a man, 38 male, John, claiming to be my grandfather's son and would like a DNA test to verify it. I was shocked and didn't believe him and told him to frack off, because that would mean that my grandfather cheated on my grandmother. He also contacted my aunt, and she recognized him as the neighbor's kid who moved away years ago. Apparently, my grandparents were friends with his parents, but then one day there was a huge fight and the couple moved away. John stated that his mom had an affair with my grandfather, and when the husband found out, he divorced his mom and they were forced to sell the house. John said that his mom's husband wanted nothing to do with him since he wasn't sure if he was the father and abandoned him. Years later, John tracked him down and after a DNA test, confirmed that he wasn't the father. John's mom confessed that the only other possible candidate was my grandfather. John's mom insisted her ex was the father for years. My aunt lives in another country, so John has been asking me to do a DNA test so that he can finally know for sure who his father is. I was willing to do it until my girlfriend, 26 female, brought up the issue of ownership of the house. I did a quick check, and if the DNA test proves that John is indeed my grandfather's son, he might be able to sue for a share of the estate. If it came down to it, I would be forced to sell my home because there's no way I could buy out even a third of the share if John wanted it. I contacted John and said that I would be more than willing to do a DNA test, but only under the condition that he sign away any rights or claims to the house if he's proven to be my grandfather's son via paperwork that my lawyer or lawyers will draw up. I didn't hear from John for days, but then got an angry call from a woman claiming to be his wife who called me greedy and selfish, that I couldn't possibly know that pain of not knowing who my father is, and that my grandfather owes John. I hung up on her and contacted a lawyer. So far, unless John can present enough evidence to create doubt, he doesn't have much of a case, especially since the possible father is already deceased. While I'm content with never giving John what he wants until he waives his rights, and my aunt won't either, his wife has begun stalking me on social media and putting me on blast. Am I the a-hole? Edit to add, just in case this wasn't clear, and to give more info, my aunt is aware that everything supports what I'm doing. My grandparents' will was very clear. Once they passed the house, my aunt got their life insurance policy. We split the remainder of the savings, and sentimental items were to be given to the designated people. There was no mention of giving anything for a possible secret long-lost child. My grandparents were cremated, so John wouldn't be able to even request that my grandfather be dug up for a test, although my aunt and I haven't told him that. I did initially block his wife, but she created other accounts. I'm an American and live in the USA. Are you the a-hole? I mean, there has to be some discussion on this. Is this guy just looking for peace of mind into who his father is? Or is this some kind of scam to try and get some money out of you? It sounds like the wife is the one that's pushing this whole thing about getting the house. Like, what does that have to do with the peace of mind or the pain of not knowing who your father is? It's very hard to say on this. You're not quite the a-hole. I mean, I think it's good that you're at least doing something to protect yourself and not just going along with this person, especially with this wife in the picture. It's very hard to know this guy's true intentions. What do you think? Story 1. I, female 24, recently found out who my daughter's, female 8, father is, and I don't know how to feel. I've known my husband, male 27, since I was 8 when he moved in across the street. He was like an older brother to my twin brother and me because we had no other siblings. My dad was gone a lot because he was a lineman. The only person I really had was my mom. I was kind of rebellious as a teen, and I'd sneak out all the time. At the time, I had never had a boyfriend because everybody was afraid of my brother. When I was 15, I snuck out and went to a party. I don't remember what happened that night, but I woke up in the back seat of my car, covered in a blanket and my jacket over my head. I was hurting and confused, but I continued with life regularly. A few months after, I went to the school nurse because I wasn't feeling well, and she gave me a pregnancy test, and I told her it was impossible because I didn't even have a boyfriend. The test was positive, and I cried because I didn't remember ever doing anything like that. They called my mom, and the nurse told me to tell my mom because she felt like she shouldn't be the one to tell her. I told my mom I was pregnant, but I've never done anything to have a baby. My mom took me to a doctor, and they told her I was too far along to abort. They told me how far I was along, and I told my mom about how I woke up in the back seat of my car that day. I had my daughter a few months later, and she looked exactly like me. My green and blue eye color, my blonde curly hair, and she even had my full lips. My now husband started to come over more after my daughter was born. He was so good with her, I started to see him as more than a friend. He bought her clothes, shoes, and toys, and he made sure she had everything she needed, even though he was a college student. When my daughter was around 3, we started to date. We dated for like 6 months before he asked me to marry him at his graduation party. We got married 4 months after that, and I got pregnant with our first son soon after. Everything was so perfect. But as my daughter grew, I noticed how much she started looking more like my husband. He always says she's his daughter, not stepdaughter. He'd get mad if somebody tried to correct him. I thought it was sweet that he was protecting her from not knowing who her father was. I recently did a DNA test to see if my gut was right. It turns out my husband is my daughter's father. I don't know what to do. I don't even know what happened. If I ask him if he remembers, how will he react? He has always been so loving and caring. He told me I was his dream girl, and he'd give me the entire world if he could. It's been a week since I got the results, and I haven't said anything. My life is so perfect that I don't even want to ask about it. This is serious. I mean, everything is good so far, but when things are down, you never know what's going to change. This is something that's going to bother you, even if everything else in your life is perfect. I think it needs to come out in the open. This needs to be discussed. You want everything out in the open. Your husband may have previously violated you, and that needs to be addressed. I really think it does. And it's going to be hard to do with your life so perfect, but kind of better now when things are at their best, rather than it being another pile of smeg piled onto when things are at their worst. Story 2. Karen called the cops on my service dog and accused me of being too young to be disabled again. So I saw Karen with her child again, but this time in Walmart while I was grocery shopping. I made the mistake of ignoring my dog when she was alerting me to my heart rate. I genuinely thought she wanted the sandwich I was eating. Boy, was I ever wrong. I ended up really dizzy and out of breath and had to sit down in the corner of the store while she was doing deep pressure therapy. I must have been on the floor for about 10 minutes. During that time, a staff member at Walmart came over to check on me and ask if I was all right. They gave me a free bottle of water as well, and I'm very appreciative of that. Anyways, while I was down, the same child saw me again from a distance and had another meltdown. The child's mom already explained to me last time that her daughter had autism. She was screaming and crying about my dog being there because she was terrified. I can understand why she may be scared because my dog is by no means small. She's a 115-pound female cane corso. Aside from alert and response, she's also trained for mobility assistance. Her breed isn't typically used as a service dog, but she was a natural. I got her as a pet dog, and she became the service dog I needed. She's a 100% good girl. This woman did not leave the store with her child that was having a meltdown. Instead, she had the audacity to call 911 on me. Eventually, the cops did show up, and she kept shouting that I was faking having a disability because I was too young to actually be disabled again, that it was illegal for me to have my service dog anywhere near food indoors, and that people like me are the reason why she has to suffer lockdowns. I'm Asian. She said the least I could do is be considerate and stay home away from everyone and keep my dog at home where it belongs. My dog was very clearly vested with tags that said service dog. I showed the cops my medical note that I carry stating that I require a service dog. In the end, the manager banned the woman from coming to the local Walmart for a year. The cops only gave her a warning for wasting their time and escorted her off the property. There are people that genuinely need help. There are genuinely people that really need special consideration. There are always going to be those people. There's those people, and then there are people that play the victim. I realize that this girl had a meltdown. I have no doubt that this child was autistic and had a fear of dogs. But you take your child out of the situation. You wait and then you finish your shopping. It's unfortunate. You have to make room for each other. You have to respect. I don't know why this is so hard to understand. I'm a victim, so I'm first. It's the weird mentality. Weird. Story 1. Am I the a-hole for refusing to remove my son from the football team his half-brother is on? I dated X for around 3 years when I got pregnant. Things were fine, but when I was 5 months along, X started saying he wasn't sure this was the right time to have a kid. I figured he was looking for an out, so I directly asked him if he wanted to be a father. He then admitted that he already had 2 kids, a 3-year-old and a 6-month-old. I had no idea that he had other kids. We broke up, and I said I was willing to split custody, but he said that split custody/child support with 3 different women was going to be too much for him to handle. To this day, he has never had contact with our son. My son is now 5. X never signed the birth certificate, so my husband was able to adopt my son without issues. We signed my son up to the local football club during lockdown, and sessions started in September. Teams go by age, so the teammates are all born within the same year and age up with that team. So he could hypothetically be in this exact team with the same lineup until he's 18 if no one leaves or joins. Obviously, that won't happen, but point is that hypothetically it could. He's had 4 sessions so far, and he's really liked it. He gets on with his teammates, the club is taking suitable precautions given current events, and everything seems to be going well in general. My husband has been taking my son to practice so far, but I did it for the first time last weekend. X was there. He saw me, came over, and asked which one of the boys was his son. I said that my son is, and pointed him out. Petty, I know, but something about him referring to a boy he's never met as his son just ticked me off. X started to make small talk, asking about my son and me. I was polite, but not exactly warm, and he walked away soon after. Later that day, I got a message over social media from X, and it was a big, long message, but the gist of it was that he wants me to remove my son from the football team. His reasoning is that his other son is unaware that my son exists, and this is going to cause issues for the other son, and he's worried the boys could get close only to then find out they're half-siblings. I said I wasn't removing him, and X called me an a-hole. I'm worried that I might be the a-hole because there are other teams in their age group for this club, but I feel like my son is settled in this one, so I don't want to move him. However, it is possible to move him, and this probably will cause issues further down the line. My son is aware that my husband is not his father, but doesn't know X's identity. And if he were to befriend his half-brother without knowing it, and I had to tell him, I don't know if making friends now will make it better or worse. Am I the a-hole for not taking him out of the team? You know, it seemed to be cut and dried as I was reading this story, but you bring up some valid points. I mean, it's not just, you're going beyond the petty here. There might come a time where he does ask who his father is, and it's going to take, and this situation could happen for quite a long time. Like you said, they could be in this team together when they turn 18. So, yeah, I would say that's, I would say that you might want to talk to the son, see if he prefers any other teams. Maybe you would want to switch. There might be a reason. It doesn't seem like you're an a-hole because you're considering other alternatives. Story 2. Mom wants stepdad to adopt me so she can inherit me. What the title says. My parents are divorced, and now I live 100 meters away from my mom and stepdad. Oh joy. Mom has on several occasions suggested/insisted that my stepdad adopted me. Female, 32, unmarried, and with no children. Her reason is that if you perish before me, your dad gets half of what you own. According to her, she deserves all of what I have earned/achieved in my life, even though she's helped me earn exactly 0% of it, while also making my life 2,000% harder. She thinks this is 100% sane behavior, but it doesn't feel like it to me. No, it isn't. She doesn't have a say in this. She keeps insisting it. I mean, short of getting a lawyer and taking some sort of legal action against you, unfortunately, you're either going to have to put up with this kind of behavior or maybe, I don't know, move. I'm pretty sure you've got her blocked on social media, right? Story 3. Love it when one doc chews another out in ER. So about, 6 years ago, I got to witness the best revenge on a rude, egotistical doc. So to start off, I have something called EOE, eosinophilic esophagitis. You have no idea how many takes it took me to get that right. Basically, think of anaphylaxis, but instead of your airway swelling shut, your esophagus does. At this time, I did not know I had EOE. I thought that choking was due to anxiety, as I've always been told. Husband and I went to dinner, and it happened. I start choking. I don't panic because it's normal for me to get up and go to the bathroom to force myself to puke. Except this time, 20 minutes in, and I can't. I'm now starting to panic a little. Husband decided to take me to the ER because I could always throw up or manage to swallow lots of water before, but it's never taken this long. We get there, I walk in calm and tell the receptionist I'm choking. She panics and calls the doc immediately. He takes one look at me, standing there calmly and breathing through my nose, and says, "You're not choking. Waiting for triage." An hour later, I get called into triage. I tell them I'm choking. Get told, "You can breathe. You're not choking. It's probably just a sore throat since it's flu season." They'll call me back. Another hour, at this point 3 hours since it started, and they get me back. This doc insists I'm not choking. People choking can't breathe or talk, and obviously I can, and he can't see anything. For 2 more hours, 5 hours at this point. I use my phone and call the patient advocate of the hospital and say I'm in the ER and I need help in a second opinion, and the doc refuses. She comes down, talks to me, and gets a GI doc to look at me. Needless to say, within 30 minutes, he had me prepped for a scope, and boy, did the sparks fly. I had a severe impaction that because of how long it was I had waited, if I had waited even another hour, I was looking at my esophagus rupturing. He put the impaction in a baggie and threw it at the ER doc and tore into him in the middle of the ER about listening to patients. And even if he doesn't think someone is choking, and they say they are, he better have a consult for GI immediately and maybe pick up a book or two. Anyway, the GI docs who told me about EOE and explained what it was and what was happening never saw that ER doc again at the hospital. Well, I suppose you had to come back several times for a visit to follow up on this stuff. And yes, doctors need to listen to patients. Yeah, there are some people that lie. Yeah, we know that show that has the mantra, everybody lies. But yeah, this person is choking, can't breathe. Should have listened. Should have listened. You wouldn't have bodily waste thrown at you.
Please like and subscribe if you made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day.
Story 1. My wife just gave birth, and I'm obviously not the father. Me, 26 male, and my wife, 27 female, recently had a baby. We have been trying for years to get pregnant, so when my wife suddenly got pregnant, it was a huge shock to us both. For privacy reasons, we'll call her Anne. Anne and I met in college through a mutual friend. We hit it off instantly and got married 2 years later. She is the light of my life. She's beautiful, kind, and funny. When Anne got pregnant last July, I was ecstatic, although my wife wasn't as happy as I expected her to be. She was overall really depressed during her pregnancy and didn't talk to me much. I thought it was just mood swings or something. But boy, was I wrong. Then a few days ago, she gave birth. For context, Anne and I are both very Asian. I immigrated to the U.S. with my family from Korea when I was little. Anne's family is third-gen Chinese. I held her hand throughout the whole procedure. As soon as I saw the baby's skin, I knew something was off. I'm really pale, and my wife is just slightly tan. The baby looked very obviously African American. The nurses brought the baby out of the room, and Anne started crying. She hasn't spoken to me since, but I've been trying to bond with our child, even if he isn't biologically male. I really love my wife, but it's obvious that an affair has been going on. I'm not sure what to do anymore. I mean, you were expecting something to change because you're bringing a life into this world, but it's going to change in a way you didn't think of. I mean, I don't know where it's going to go from here. I mean, you seem to be doing the right thing and trying to bond with this child and, being a loving father, even though he isn't yours. It's going to depend on what she wants. And probably, I don't know. I really don't know. I hope there is some sort of an ending where you come out of it, stable in some way or another. I am sorry for what you're going to have to go through. Story 2. My date got me a gift, so I got him fired from his job. Hi, I'm a 22-year-old female to male who, at the time of this story, was just out of a relationship. I started seeing this guy, 24 male, who we will call Frank for the story. We went to a bar and we clicked very well. He would then hang out at my place almost 3 times a week, where things were amazing. About a month into our friendship/relationship, we were thinking about getting serious. Frank constantly love-bombed me, messaged me every day about how much he loved me, and etc. He even came over one day with a gift for me that was in a unique designed glittery gift bag that had crystals, a hoodie, little necklaces, charms, and baked goods from a store in the mall. We officially started dating, and it was great. For a week. Frank sent me a long text message saying, "Oh, I love you so much," and how he would love me forever. Going to bed, I thought nothing of it. Just happy someone loved me and expressed it. The next morning, I woke up to another paragraph text, thinking it was another love message. I was wrong. He started off the text with, "I don't love you," and wrote about how he was sleeping with his ex and me at the same time, and that he didn't love her and lied about loving me. I was devastated. Normally, I wouldn't have cared that much, but after being love-bombed for a month by Frank, it stung. Immediately after reading this text, I got suspicious. Some backstory. For the duration of talking to him, he talked horrible about his ex, whom Frank still lived with, saying that she was abusive, trashy, etc. So hearing him say he was sleeping with her stung a lot, but also set off some red flags. I went to work that day upset, but I was getting over it quickly. Until Frank's ex messaged me on Instagram, whom we will call Stacy. Stacy told me how he was love-bombing her and begged for her back, and that she wanted to make sure me and him weren't a thing. Out of respect, I told Stacy what he had said to me, considering she was brought up in the text anyways, and I sent her screenshots of every single time he trash-talked her. And I'm talking at least 50 screenshots of paragraphs of him trash-talking her. He was trying to get sympathy from me for him to come over and stay the night. Stacy apologized for his actions and decided not to date him. Eventually, me and her grew to become good friends, and I realized Frank had lied about everything. Stacy was the sweetest, most timid person I've ever met. Now remember the gift he had given me? I ended up rearranging my room and finding the bag with everything Frank gave me. Looking at the items, something seemed off, so I texted Stacy. I asked her if she happened to be missing anything. Any crystals or hoodies. She had a hippie aesthetic, so her owning crystals was a given. Stacy texted me back that she was in fact missing 3 crystals, and she described the ones that Frank had gifted me exactly. The hoodie? Also hers. The charms? Hers. The only thing he didn't steal from her to give me were the baked goods. From his job. Stacy and Frank both worked at the mall in our city. I decided to stop by and return everything he had stolen and given to me. He was off that day, but I was told when she got home and he saw the gaudy bag he put everything in, he knew we met up and knew what he did. He apparently started crying and begging for her to forgive him on his knees, which I found hilarious. Fast forward a week later, Stacy tells me how he went back to doing the same thing with other girls. Apparently he had done this 5 other times to different girls, getting into full committed relationships and cheating. Angry, I remember something Frank had told me about how he would steal baked goods to bring home, and that if his boss found out, he'd be ticked. So I naturally called the store he worked at, told him everything he was doing at work, along with his cheating and two-timing, and all other secrets he told me about what he did at work that could get him fired. Since then, I never see him at the bakery, and when I ask about him, they pretend he never existed. Even my new best friend Stacy said he moved out since he couldn't afford rent. So where he is now is a mystery. It's a game. It's a game to this person, just seeing who he can hook up with and hook. Just playing with people. It's awful. And unfortunately, I don't think he's reformed. I think he's just moving on to other girls that don't know about his shtick yet. I mean, this is just as bad as that episode of, It's Always Sunny in California. This is not Sunny in California. You know the show I'm talking about. It's Always Sunny in California. The dentist system. I mean, this is like on par with that kind of diabolical actions. Story 1. I've fallen in love with the husband of the woman my husband is cheating on me with. I'm 36, female, and my husband is 38, male. We've been together for 10 years. We have one daughter, who's 6. She's everything to me. I found out a year ago that my husband is sleeping with his employee, female 30. How? Her husband, let's call him Jay, male 35, contacted me. He was heartbroken and he thought that I ought to know. He provided me with text messages and dated when they've been in hotels. I recognized my husband's style, and I recognized the other woman. I have seen her on multiple occasions when I visited my husband at work. She'd been nothing but kind and pleasant towards me, and she always doted on my daughter. I asked Jay what he wanted to do, and he said that he wasn't sure yet, so I requested that we should meet. He agreed. I told him about my life and that I'm currently not working. After the pandemic, I lost my job, and now the economy, I haven't really had an opportunity to find a job. Instead, I've been studying these past 2 years. If I divorce now, I won't be able to provide for my daughter. That would probably put her in my husband's custody as a primary provider. I asked him if he could wait a few months, hopefully longer, therefore, and to my surprise, he agreed. I thanked him profusely, and he told me that he didn't know what to do either, so he's happy to wait. Also, the other woman has 3 children from a previous relationship, and he was worried that she would refuse him being in their lives once he confronted her because he's not the father. We kept in touch, however. He called me a few times a week, and soon we started to talk about other things other than our failed marriages. Afterwards, we started going for walks, coffee, movies, etc. I found myself thinking about him often, with a smile on my face. He was the first thing I thought of in the morning and the last thing I thought of before going to bed. For the last 3 to 4 months, we probably mentioned our spouses once or twice. We talk about everything else, and he always makes me laugh. He thinks I'm funny too. 2 weeks ago, we were having a picnic, and he just blurted out, "I think that I'm in love with you." When he then explained himself, it just drove the point home that I also am in love with him. He said that at first he wasn't sure why he was feeling like this towards me, and explained it away as 2 jilted people finding comfort in each other, but that he then realized that he wasn't broken anymore. That he even thinks of his wife's infidelity as a blessing because it leads him to me. That was exactly how I felt too. I didn't know what to say. I told him that I'm terrified that these are false feelings that would go away once we're freed ourselves from those who hurt us. He just beamed at me and said he was willing to take the risk just to find out. He kissed my hand because I thought we were still married, and if we did something, then how are we better than our significant others? I don't know what to do now. I find myself daydreaming about him, about introducing him to my daughter, kiss him, wake up next to him every morning. I still have 1 semester left, and then I'm probably going to find a job. I've already had some offers for when I'm finished with my studies. I have thanked Jay so many times for being so patient with me about everything. I appreciate that he's waiting for me to put my life in order before we expose our spouses who aren't really seeing each other as often as they used to. He told me he's happy to help and he just wants a real kiss as a thank you when everything is over. My goal now is to secure my job and leave this marriage. Am I pathetic for wanting to give Jay and I a shot and see where it would go? Can 2 broken hearts really find happiness together when their love story starts like ours? I don't have much experience on this. I don't think I could tell you really what would happen. It could go either way. Maybe you two find happiness in each other. And maybe after you've ended everything, yeah, I mean, it's just going to be very much a wake-up call to the spouses that, hey, you know, your actions have consequences. Maybe it goes the other way. Maybe after this, you find that it was just an illusion from what you were going through after all. It's kind of hard to say. And it sounds like you're not really cheating on each other in the way that these two are. And it doesn't sound like you are. I hope you aren't. But yeah, I mean, right now it just depends on you two. Do you really want to give it a shot? Story 2. I pretend I'm an influencer, so I'll do basic chores. For the past 3 months, I've been pretending to be an influencer. I tend to go through serious bouts of depression. I won't shower or eat. I just lay in bed and rot. However, I've recently discovered that if I record myself and pretend that I'm talking to an audience, I'm able to motivate myself to get ready and go to work. This also goes for my chores. I'll do a time-lapse video of myself doing the dishes, laundry, and everything else that I'll need to do. I don't post the videos anywhere, and I don't show the videos to anyone. They're just really fun to look back on, and it makes me happy to see that I've accomplished things while feeling this awful about life. Yeah, nothing wrong with that, I don't think. I think it's just the modern version of like a diary. There were some people that would just write about stuff that was happening in their lives and just write it out. And it wasn't until the internet and blogging came out that some people decided to make it public. And so, yeah, you just invented a video diary, and it sounds like it's helping you. Excellent job. Really good way to figure out what to do to get you out and moving. Story 3. I don't think your kid will like my candy, lady, but whatever. Since there's only a week left of summer, I decided to take the kids to the local amusement/water park today. As I've gotten older, the rides have gotten a little tougher on me. In addition, my daughter tends to get motion sick rather easily. I don't like the way motion sickness pills make me feel, so I always take a Ziploc baggie full of ginger candy along to prevent and soothe nausea. Today, I had chewy mango ginger candies, hard plain ginger candies, and hard lemon ginger candies. For those who have never had ginger candy, it is spicy. The lemon ginger is probably the mildest. The plain ginger is just plain hot. Mango ginger is sweet and spicy, but it also sticks to your teeth like crazy. They're definitely an acquired taste. As we're standing in line for the log ride, I pull out my baggie. I choose a lemon one, as did my son, 13. My daughter, 12, asks for a mango one. While I'm fishing a mango out, I hear the kid in front of us tell his mom that he, around 7-ish, wants some candy. His mom distractedly says she doesn't have any candy. The boy says, "But she does." He turns to me and asks for one. I tell him I don't really think he'd like my candy. By this time, his mom has focused on the interaction. As the kid starts to whine that, of course, he'd like my candy, his mom just huffs and says, "You've got a whole baggie. Can't you give him just one? Come on, don't be greedy." Oh, you said the magic word there, lady. I say, all right, and dig out a lemon one. I'm not completely heartless. That's when the kid whines that he wants mango. Mango is his favorite. I tell him lemon is better, but he insists on mango. I tell him it's kind of sticky as I hand it over. The kid rips it open, shoves it in his mouth, gets in 3 quick chews while my kids stare at him. Then he actually starts to taste it, and a look of horror comes on his face. He screams and tries to spit it out. He's jumping around and flapping his arms. His mom is panicking and asking what's wrong. He screams that it's bad and it's hot, and he wants it out. His mom tells him to spit it out. That's when I pipe in with a very helpful, "It's really sticky. What's left is probably stuck in his teeth. He'll have to wait for it to melt off if he doesn't want to chew." The mom looks at me in disbelief and a shrug. Then she asks what in the hell I gave her son. "Probably should have asked that sooner, lady." I answer, "Ginger candy. It's good for nausea." I'm pretty sure I'd be unalive if looks could really fatal people. We got to move up in line 2 spaces, though, because she whisked her kid off to a water fountain. I'd like to think the kid will think twice about demanding things from strangers. Plus, it was entertaining. Overall, the kids and I counted it as a win. Right. People think they're entitled to other people's property, and then when they get it, yeah, maybe you should have asked some questions first. Exactly. Taking candy from strangers is not always a very sweet deal. I can't believe I just said that.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.